Kill! Then, a chaotic fight broke out in the wide and spacious field. Two groups of contestants totaling more than a dozen people clashed fiercely. Swords waved about and reflected light off them, while magic spells filled the place. The ground shook, and the mountains swayed as the place turned gloomy and overcast. There was only one cause for them getting into such a huge fight, and that was the 50 meters long pitch-black gigantic bull next to them. The Saint Domain magical beast, the King Kong Bull. Moo! The King Kong Bull watched as the group of more than a dozen contestants fought it out with each other, while ignoring its Saint Domain magical beast presence the whole time, and then its bull-headed temper erupted. All of you have got guts to clamor about hunting this old bull here. I've already primed myself for a hard battle ahead, but in the end, I'm left on the sideline while all of you fight it out. This is pure, total disregard for this bull here. A cow may be able to tolerate this, but not this old bull here. Moo! The King Kong Bull let out a furious roar. Then it unleashed its full power straight away. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless leaves and plants rose into the sky amid several sharp whizzes. Then, they turned into an overwhelming expanse of grass arrows and instantly shot outward. It was the Wood Elemental first-class spell, a soldier in every plant. A first-class spell's might was no trifling matter. By the time the contestants realized what was going on, the endlessly wide net of grass arrows had already engulfed them. Splurt! Splurt! Amid shrill screams, the contestants were thrown back one after another. They were either straight up killed by grass arrows piercing through their foreheads or turned into Swiss cheese by grass arrows and suffered a tragic death. Thousands upon thousands of arrows later, not even a single one of them was left standing. The fortunate ones had died on the spot while the unfortunate ones were on their last breath. A bunch of trash. The King Kong Bull viciously dealt the finishing blows, and then it left triumphantly. During the last couple of days, people constantly tried to take its life and inherit its magic core. A significant number of contestants had died in the King Kong Bull's hands in the last few days. Close to 100 corpses laid in the fields, which were stained with blood. Even the King Kong Bull had grown somewhat tired of such meaningless battles. It wanted to leave the place in search of a safe haven. Puff! It was at this moment that a howling black wind blew over. Then, a tall, strong, and muscular man nearly 3 meters tall drifted over. The man had strong, intertwining muscles and wore striped tiger hide. His eyes were bright and sharp, much like a hawk's. Here comes another one. The King Kong Bull wasn't even the least bit surprised when he caught sight of the man. Instead, it looked around habitually to see if anyone else had also arrived. It was already used to situations like this. It's been a long while since I last ate beef. You'll satisfy my craving today. The muscular, tiger hide-clad man licked his lips. With just a shift of his feet, he appeared right in front of the King Kong Bull. Then, his ceramic pot-sized fist went flying out forcefully. Crack! With a crisp crack, the King Kong Bull couldn't even cry out before the fist smashed right through its head, and it died on the spot. The muscular man withdrew his fist. A look of revelry appeared in his eyes as he licked the whitish brains on the surface of his fist. Beef brains taste the most addictive indeed. As he spoke, the muscular man pried open the bull's head with brute force while he was at it and started to take bite after bite of it. In under half an hour, he had finished almost half of the bull's head. Perfect! After he was done, the tiger hide-clad muscular man rubbed his full belly. Then he gouged out its magic core and left satisfied. As a Saint Domain expert, his traveling speed was not to be doubted. Before long, he had already flown a distance of almost 100 kilometers to arrive in front of a great mountain. The man remarked with a slight frown, "There are fewer and fewer magical beasts now. It's been such a long time, yet I actually haven't encountered even a single one." At that moment, a barely discernible aura drifted over from afar. That's a Saint Domain magical beast's aura. It's coming from that direction. Whoosh! He followed the Saint Domain magical beast aura the whole way. It didn't take long before the man arrived at a beautiful ocean bay and spotted a behemoth over 50 meters tall. At the same time at the Dragon God Cathedral, everyone watching the magic screen became worked up at once. Their blood boiled as they cheered loudly, so agitated that their faces were all red. They've run into each other. Those two mutants have finally run into each other. Oh my dragon god. I'm so excited. One is a double bloodline holder and a Saint Domain expert in 2 areas of expertise, while the same also goes for the other. They've finally run into each other. We're gonna have a good show now. Everyone, ranging from the princes and princesses to the nobles and officials, stared hard at the magic screen, looking forward eagerly to the upcoming battle. Even Emperor Frederick the 32nd was no exception. He gave a light laugh and asked, "President Luke, President Fred, between the two of them, who do you think edges out the other?" President Luke glanced at President Fred before he replied confidently, "I'll admit that Meng Lei is certainly greatly talented and is a talent that comes only once in 10,000 years, but he's ultimately still too young." Is President Luke saying that Meng Lei is no match for Mond Aston, the White Tiger Knight? President Fred said with a calm smile. Both you and I are well aware that when it comes to geniuses of their level, age isn't everything sometimes. Talent can bypass everything. President Fred, you haven't interacted with Mond Aston before, so you don't understand just how frightening he is. He's no ordinary genius. President Luke said meaningfully, "Just watch on. He'll show us with his might that even the strongest genius needs time to mature, including Meng Lei. We'll let the truth speak for itself then." President Fred didn't wish to say any more. The truth will prove everything. Neither was President Luke interested in saying any further. One is a Saint Domain great magician who, at only 16 years old, not only possesses both the Fire Dragon bloodline and Golden Colossal Dragon bloodline, but also has 4 types of magic talent: thunder, earth, fire, and wood. The other is ranked 38th place in the Dragon God Genius ranking. Not only does he possess both the White Tiger and the Netherworld White Tiger bloodlines, but he's also a Saint Domain great magician of 3 different elements: light, dark, and metal. One is amazingly talented while the other is astoundingly gifted. For these 2 people to go up against each other, this is certainly a match of equally formidable opponents and a clash of the titans. Frederick the 32nd marveled sincerely. "This is one of the showdowns I am looking forward to the most since the start of the exchange competition this year." "Indeed, Your Majesty." Both 16-year-old Meng Lei and Mond Aston, who's ranked 38th place in the Dragon God Genius ranking, are seeded contestants in this year's exchange competition. We are also looking incredibly forward to the battle between the 2 of them. I had initially thought that they'd only run into each other in the latter half of the competition, but little did I expect them to meet so quickly. This is truly and terribly exciting. Everyone was staring at the magic screen. Ever since Meng Lei had made his debut, everyone was astounded by his abilities, and even more so his talent for magic. They craved for the sight of him, including even the Emperor. Thus, Meng Lei had received a lot of screen time on the magic screen. It was almost as much as the screen time that the 13th Princess, the Golden Dragon Lion, and the Thunder Giant had received. It was only after Meng Lei had arrived at the Golden Ocean Bay and turned on his slacker mode to wait idly for opportunities to come knocking that the camera moved away from him. Nevertheless, even so, they'd still return for a look now and then. Thus, at the sight of the scenic Ocean Bay, everyone had recognized it as the very same Golden Ocean Bay where Meng Lei was waiting. This implied that Mond Aston was going to face Meng Lei very soon. Such anticipation! Such excitement! Meng Lei and Mond Aston, the 2 monsters whose names start with M, are finally facing each other. I wonder who'll win. It's going to be a fierce fight. A campfire blazed on the clean, white sandy shore. Hanging above the campfire was a rather dramatically large pot. Inside the 10-meter-wide pot, soup bubbled and boiled as an aroma rushed toward one's senses. The pot was filled with various seafood. Fresh, tender fish, dustpan-sized crabs, black boar-sized lobsters, full, plump abalones, long, thick geoducks. An aroma wafted about from the dish that boasted both looks and fragrance. Meng Lei sat cross-legged as he floated in midair next to the pot. He held 2 long chopsticks and ate as he drank. One needn't even mention just how enthusiastic he currently was. Gurgle, the multi-armed behemoth, currently letting out its aura a short distance away, could only stare in his direction as it swallowed its saliva loudly. Oh, how enviable! You're craving for the food again? While holding a boar-sized lobster and munching on its white, tender flesh, Meng Lei cast a glance at the multi-armed behemoth. Yes, yes. Sokka's nodded incessantly, drooling at the mouth. Take it. Meng Lei casually grabbed an ox-sized crab and tossed it over to Sokka's. Sokka's caught hold of it smoothly. Then, without even caring that it was burning hot, it bit the bright red crab pincer and stuffed it in its mouth. Amid the crisp sounds of crunching, the huge ox-sized crab didn't last long before it entered Sokka's stomach, not even leaving behind its shell. Then, Sokka stared at Meng Lei longingly again as it swallowed its saliva, its stomach letting out thunderous growls again. Can you eat a little slower? You've already eaten 19 crabs, 38 lobsters, 76 abalones, and 152 geoducks. Meng Lei was rendered speechless. At this rate, it's not going to be enough no matter how much there is. Not to be judgmental, but when it comes to seafood, you have to chew slowly so that you can taste the freshness. Swallowing it whole like what you're doing is practically a waste. I get it, boss, Sokka said with a pitiful look on its face. But the hot pot is simply too delicious. The spice really packs a punch. I can't stop myself. Of course. I've always liked how this tastes since I was young. Meng Lei was rather smug about it. Then, he tossed a millstone-sized abalone over and said, Abalones must be eaten and savored slowly. Get it? Got it, boss, Sokka's hurriedly responded, and then it grabbed the abalone and stuffed it into its mouth, shell and all, and began to crunch on it. In the blink of an eye, it had finished it all up again. And then, it continued to stare at Meng Lei hopefully. Meng Lei gave up completely. He pointed at the boundless ocean and chastised him. We're out of ingredients. If you want to eat, then go and catch them yourself. Will you cook them for me if I catch them, boss? Of course not. Do it yourself. Okay. After responding, Sokka started to strode toward the waters. The Golden Ocean Bay boasted a rich abundance of resources and a great variety of ingredients, and they became even more abundant, especially after the golden brown crabs were wiped out. Sourcing for a bit of seafood was really not a problem at all. La. Sokka's quickly searched for ingredients as it daydreamed about the gourmand experience. It was at this moment that a shrill was rang out, followed by Mond Aston's appearance. To think it's actually a multi-armed behemoth. A fierce battle, a multi-armed behemoth is a behemoth that can rival a golden behemoth. If I can subdue it as my mount, how impressive would that be? Who wouldn't want a mighty, imposing, and terrifyingly strong mount for themselves? Mond Aston was no exception, of course. It was just a shame that he turned his nose up at most magical beasts, but the multi-armed behemoth in front of him right now just so happened to not be one of them. Little cutie, Big Brother is here. Sokka sensed something, and it turned around to see a muscular man wrapped in tiger hide gazing at him with a wide smile. Another fish that I'd baited? Sokka's broke into a grin and thumped its chest hard. Boss, hurry, and come over. Another idiot has bitten the hook. Oh, Mond Aston was dumbstruck at once. Why was the situation not quite what he had imagined? But it was all right, no matter what. It wasn't as if the multi-armed behemoth in front of him was fake, right? Multi-armed behemoth. I've taken an interest in you. Mond Aston raised his chin slightly at once and proposed calmly. What say you to follow me and become my mount? What? Upon hearing the word mount, a hostile look appeared in Sokka's eyes at once, and it raised its arms, ready to bash in the head of the damned human standing in front of it. It was at this point that Meng Lei appeared. Without even a word, he launched Absolute Zero. A white, chilly air current burst forth and sealed Mond Aston in ice amid crisp-sounding cracks. What an idiot! Thinking of making me your mount? Dream on. I'll always be boss' most loyal underling. Sokka spat disdainfully, and then it turned around and looked at Meng Lei with an ingratiating expression, like a husky. Boss, look how I've lured another fish here. Shouldn't you? It cast a glance in the direction of the hot pot, the meaning of its action self-evident. Go ahead. The rest of the seafood is all yours. Meng Lei cleaned his teeth with a toothpick and declared very generously. There wasn't much meat left in the pot anyway, and they were even leftovers. What was the loss in giving them to Sokka's? Waha! Thank you, boss. Sokka's was overjoyed. It ran quickly to the pot, its thick, muscular legs splashing the seawater about and causing great waves in the water. That guy? Meng Lei broke into a smile. Then, he turned and looked at Mond Aston, who had been sealed in ice, and said calmly, "Come on out. Absolute zero of this level shouldn't be capable of sealing you." Crack, crack, cracks appeared in the hard, solid ice lump. As more and more appeared, the ice finally broke into an infinite amount of ice crystals. Here I was, wondering who had ambushed me. Little did I think that it'd be a little brat who hasn't even grown up. Mond Aston raised his chin at once, his eyes full of arrogance as he said, "Little brat, break your contract with that multi-armed behemoth at once, and I won't hold your sin of ambushing me against you. I can even let you off the hook. How does that sound? Friend, do your parents know that you're such a show-off outside of home?" Meng Lei scoffed and said calmly, "Hand over all the spatial rings on you, and I won't pursue the matter of you posturing in front of me. I can even spare your life. What say you? Ha ha ha." Upon hearing Meng Lei's words, Mond Aston immediately burst into loud laughter as if he had just heard the funniest joke. His laughter was like the roiling thunder, ringing out with a deafening boom. Then, all of a sudden, his laughter came to an abrupt stop, and a harsh, murderous expression came over his features. In all my years of moving unhindered through the world, no one has ever dared to speak to me, Mond Aston, like that. Whoosh! The next moment, he abruptly appeared in front of Meng Lei. He stared straight into his eyes and said, "All those that had dared to speak to me like that have all gone to hell and into the Grim Reaper's embrace. Do you know that? Is that so? I'm very honored to be the only survivor." Then, the two men's eyes bore into each other's. There were only a few centimeters between the two of them. Despite how Meng Lei could clearly sense the terrifyingly dangerous aura coming from Mond Aston, he didn't fear him in the least. Survivor? Not necessarily so. Mond Aston scoffed and said, "On account of how you're just a little brat, I'll allow you to make the first move, lest others accuse me of bullying someone younger. Since that's the case, then I won't stand on ceremony." Meng Lei's voice was still echoing in the surroundings, but his form had already quietly vanished from where he had initially been. A series of afterimages flitted by, and he abruptly rushed right up to Mond Aston. Then his fist went flying out. Boom! His punch was extremely fast, so much so that Mond Aston couldn't quite react in time, and the punch shocked him in the gut. As a dull bam rang out, Mond Aston's expression changed instantly. "How's that? Was that punch all right for you?" Meng Lei smiled lightly at him. Then, he bizarrely appeared behind Mond Aston like a ghost. He kicked Mond Aston squarely in the jaw with a mighty and forceful roundhouse kick. Crack! Mond Aston was thrown outward at once. "You bastard!" As he felt the intense pain in his gut and his jaw in midair, Mond Aston was shocked and furious. He had realized his lapse in judgment. That seemingly harmless little brat was definitely an unfathomably strong expert, be it his speed or his physical strength. Both were far beyond an ordinary Saint Domain experts. Where's that little brat from? To think he's actually such a monster. Boom! Meng Lei didn't stop at that. He continued to attack, launching punch after punch and kick after kick. Using both his arms and his legs, he launched a surging, endless wave of attacks. Boom, boom, boom. Bam, bam, bam. The combination of punches and kicks was such that Mond Aston simply didn't have any chance of retaliation. It was just like a one-sided fight. Oh, how did that happen? Everyone in the Dragon God Cathedral looked at one another, absolutely flabbergasted. Where was the planned fierce battle? Where was the planned exciting clash? Where was the planned showdown between equally matched opponents? What nonsense! All of that was absolute nonsense. Was that a goddamn fierce battle? It was obviously a one-sided bashing and crushing. What do you think of that now, President Luke? Fred looked at the Dragon God Academy president, smugly. Mond Aston was careless and underestimated his opponent, resulting in him losing the initiative. That's the only reason that led to the current situation. President Luke had a surly look on his face as he said, "As long as he can regain his footing in time, the outcome of this battle still remains to be seen. I'm just afraid that he won't have that chance anymore." Fred shook his head and gave a soft laugh. Then he continued to watch the magic screen. To be honest, he actually knew that President Luke was indeed right. As long as Mond Aston could regain his footing in time, the outcome remained to be seen. Mond Aston was indeed a very extraordinary man. "You bastard! Damn!" After taking a whole series of beatings, Mond Aston finally erupted. His body suddenly underwent a great change. His speed suddenly spiked, and he extricated himself from Meng Lei's attack range in an instant. "You bastard!" Mond Aston stood proudly in midair, his eyes bearing into Meng Lei's. The look in his eyes was as if he wanted to swallow Meng Lei alive. "Eh?" Meng Lei let out a soft sound of surprise. The change in Mond Aston was too great. He was completely a different person from before. A pair of wings extended from his back, black on the left and white on the right. There was a pair of tiger ears at the top of his head and a few tiger whiskers on his cheeks. Black and white fur covered his body, while a tiger tail hung at his bottom. His height reached 5 meters tall. Every one of his rock-like muscles was bulging, and his body was filled with an explosive strength from head to toe. "He's transformed. Mond Aston has transformed. We're gonna have a good show now." At the sight of Mond Aston's change, all the Dragon God Cathedral spectators began to cheer. They were exceptionally excited. They didn't like to watch one-sided fights, much less when the one being pummeled was a genius from their own academy. They loved to watch fierce battles, equally matched battles, comebacks from desperate situations, and even more so their geniuses crushing other people. "Come on, Mond Aston. Bring your strength to the table and show that country bumpkin your might. Mond Aston. Mond Aston." Several princes and princesses, nobles and officials began to shout and cheer for Mond Aston to encourage him. "That was just a warm-up exercise just now, President Fred. The real battle only starts now," President Luke said meaningfully. "Or maybe it's the end. It's hard to say," President Fred replied with a calm smile. "What bloodline is that?" A slightly astonished Meng Lei stared at Mond Aston, who had grown a pair of wings on his back and was standing afloat proudly in midair. "It looks like the Netherworld White Tiger bloodline." While Amos' voice rang out as he said, "But it holds even more terrifying might than a pure-blooded Netherworld White Tiger. It's a little strange." "The Netherworld White Tiger bloodline?" Meng Lei murmured softly to himself. "That black and white mix in spots and circles, why does it look somewhat like a panda? I'll admit that I've underestimated you somewhat, kid." Mond Aston's tiger-like eyes were cold and harsh, giving off a sharp, murderous intent. "But it ends here now. I will return. Multiple times over. The humiliation you've given me just now to you." Whoosh! The wings on his back flapped lightly, and then a series of afterimages flitted by. D. As a tiger roar rang out, a fist also came flying toward Meng Lei. "He's so fast. His speed has actually risen significantly." An alarmed Meng Lei retreated with a burst of speed. "Thinking of fleeing? Can you even?" Mond Aston let out a sinister laugh. His speed spiked again to several times that of the speed of sound, and then a punch went smashing toward Meng Lei's face. Bam! This time, Meng Lei didn't manage to duck, and he took the punch squarely. Intense pain assaulted his senses as Meng Lei was instantly thrown backward. "Take my punishment, kid!" Mond Aston roared furiously as he rained attacks down on Meng Lei like a storm. This time, it was Meng Lei's turn to be a punching bag. Bam! 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 Boom! 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 That guy is so fast. Am I actually slower than him while I'm in human form? Inconceivable. Meng Lei was greatly astonished. After he had raised the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate to 2%, Be it his speed or his defenses, both had reached an astonishingly high level. Even Saint Domain magical beasts whose forte was speed couldn't rival him. Never would he have expected that that guy who had come out of nowhere would actually be faster than even him. There was no way he wouldn't be astounded by that. It's a shame that I can't transform into a god-slaying rat. Otherwise, I'll definitely be faster than him. Since that's the case, then let's raise it some more. System. Raise my god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate by 1%. Whoosh! His wealth decreased by 100 billion gold coins in an instant. A spike in physical strength. A spike in speed. A spike in defenses. The change between one moment and the next was the most clearly felt by Meng Lei, the one currently being beaten up. What Meng Lei felt just a moment ago when he was facing Mond Aston's beating had been severe, intense pain. His whole body had been close to breaking apart. But now, the pain had reduced significantly to become a normal level of pain that was completely within an acceptable range. What did that imply? It implied that despite how Mond Aston's attacks hadn't eased up, his pain had instead been reduced. This could only mean that Meng Lei's endurance had increased. His defenses had been greatly enhanced. To what extent has my speed reached? Meng Lei's eyelid twitched. He ducked the instant Mond Aston's fist came smashing toward him. With a flash, he was already 100 meters away. Mond Aston's punch landed on thin air, and he stumbled forward, almost falling onto the ground. His expression changed as he looked at Meng Lei, who was standing 100 meters away. He's actually managed to duck. He clearly couldn't just now, yet he has managed to now. Your attacks are extremely sharp. In particular, your speed is the fastest among all the opponents I've faced. As Meng Lei floated in midair and took in the endless strength pumping through his body, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. It's just a pity that I'm even faster. Whoosh! His voice was still reverberating in the air when a series of afterimages flitted by. By then, Meng Lei was already behind Mond Aston. With a bend of his elbow, his hand balled into a fist and went flying out. His series of actions reached the absolute pinnacle of speed. It was so fast that his fist struck Mond Aston before he could even react. Boom! It held great impact and a heavy force that broke through everything. Ugh! Blood sprayed from Mond Aston, and he doubled over at once, the impact almost causing him to throw up the beef brains that he had eaten earlier. A single punch alone had heavily injured him. Why has your strength suddenly spiked so much? Stunned by the change, Mond Aston was shocked and horrified. How did that happen? The audience at the Dragon God Cathedral was close to breaking down. Was that a battle or a goddamn roller coaster ride? Could they finish it in one go instead of having so many twists and turns? Their hearts couldn't take it. Up against Meng Lei, whose physical strength and speed had undergone a dramatic spike, Mond Aston's outcome had long since been destined. In other words, to be beaten up. Whoosh! As though a ghost, Meng Lei appeared at one place one moment and another place the next. He was like an afterimage constantly striking at Mond Aston. Punch, 2 kicks, 3 elbow jabs. A series of attack combinations later, Mond Aston was reduced to a punching bag and pummeled by Meng Lei once more. And this time round, it was different from the previous time. Not only was he unable to make a comeback, but he instead started to suffer injuries, and serious ones, the kind getting more and more serious too at that. As they watched Mond Aston, who was heavily injured and throwing up blood, the audience's wishes at the cathedral finally came true. The battle didn't undergo any more twists and turns. But they simply couldn't rejoice at all. He's lost. Mond Aston has actually lost. Oh my dragon god, is that guy the devil? He's only 16 years old. Yet even Mond Aston is no match for him. Isn't Mond Aston a double bloodline holder? His transformation just now was only for one of his bloodlines, right? He still has another bloodline that he hasn't used. Why isn't he using it? At the spectator's words, President Luke instead gave a wry chuckle. Mond Aston indeed held 2 different bloodlines, and the other one, the White Tiger bloodline, was, in fact, even stronger than the Netherworld White Tiger bloodline. However, how would the heavily injured Mond Aston possibly be Meng Lei's match, even if he activated his White Tiger bloodline? The outcome is clear. Frederick the 32nd sighed a little emotionally and said, Mond Aston has lost the battle. How brilliant, Your Majesty. President Fred bowed slightly. President Fred, your Academy's Menglei is indeed extremely outstanding. Frederick the 32nd marveled, and then he asked in puzzlement. But there's something I find rather odd. Why did his speed suddenly spike just now? That, I wouldn't know. Fred shook his head lightly. Perhaps he was hiding his strength. There's also a chance that he had derived a greater degree of comprehension of some kind of laws of nature at the critical moment. Is that so? Frederick the 32nd's brows drew together lightly, clearly not quite satisfied with such an explanation. Regardless, he didn't press any further, but continued to watch the magic screen instead. And like what he had said, the outcome was clear. A few rounds later, the heavily injured Mond Aston wasn't able to make any sort of effective attack at all, and at last, he collapsed from his wounds. I've finally settled the case. Menglei heaved a sigh of relief. That fellow was indeed a difficult one to deal with. If he hadn't spent 10 laws of nature origin crystals to raise his god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate, he might just really have flopped unexpectedly and gotten pummeled by him. The Dragon God Empire has many talents in hiding, indeed. Menglei was rather emotional as he muttered to himself, I'm already cheating so much, yet there are still people who could beat me into the ground. Just how rich is the Dragon God Empire's heritage? The exchange competition's contestants were no older than 30 years old. To Saint Domain experts with long lifespans, 30 years old was no more than just a fraction of their lifespans. Just how strong would those old freaks more than 30 years old be when Mond Aston was already that monstrous before he had even reached 30 years of age? I'm still too weak. I have to redeem more credit and work even harder. Menglei swiped all the spatial rings on Mond Aston, and then he handed them to his loyal subordinate. Sakas, throw him away. Yes, boss. Menglei switched on his slacker mode again. Swimming, fishing, sunbathing, eating seafood, occasionally robbing unlucky souls that he had baited, his days were carefree and leisurely. His only regret was that aside from the magic cores that were slowly increasing in number day by day, there was pretty much no change in his wealth. Menglei couldn't help but reminisce about the days he had spent hunting magical beasts in the Dragon God Tower. Compared to the Lost Continent, the Dragon God Tower is more suited to me. This goddamn exchange competition should just hurry up and end. Day after day went by. The number of fish biting the hook also became fewer and fewer. By this day, despite Sokka's giving off his aura all the way from the morning to the evening, it didn't lure even a single person over. 3 days. It'll be a month in another 3 days. I'll be able to leave this place at that time. Menglei thought idly to himself as he laid on the rocking chair and bathed in the gentle sunlight while gazing at the rolling waves rising and falling. Suddenly, an aged voice rang out by his ear. Like a trickling stream, it flowed straight into the depths of his soul. In that instant, Menglei felt his mind suddenly calming down and becoming tranquil. My children that believe in me devoutly, I am the spirit of the divine tree, the creator and guardian of this continent. This year's ripened fruits have already been sent to various corners of the continent. I hope the lucky children can find them. Godspeed. What? Menglei jumped to his feet. Did you hear that, Sokkas? To his surprise, he didn't get any response. Menglei turned to see Sokkas kneeling on the ground and staring into the distance with an excited look on his face and fervent worship in his eyes. The divine tree. It's the divine tree's voice. Oh, great divine tree. I am your child. Sokkas, I sincerely offer up my faith and pray for you from the bottom of my heart. Menglei was rendered speechless and completely silent. Nevertheless, he contacted OL President at once. OL President, did you hear that voice just now? The divine tree. It's that divine tree's voice. I heard it. Well, Amos' voice rang out as he replied. Not only did I hear it, but I've almost locked on to its location, too. What? You've locked on to the divine tree's location. A huge jolt went through Menglei as he asked, Where is it? OL President? Amos was silent for a brief moment before he replied in a low voice. It's not too far from us, 100 kilometers away at the furthest. We're so near to it? Meng Lei shuddered and hastily glanced about. Don't bother. You won't be able to find it. Well, Amos lowered his voice and said, Meng Lei, I have a very uneasy feeling about this. Uneasy feeling? Meng Lei was stunned. Do you remember what the uni-horned rose python said? Amos asked in a grave tone of voice. About the divine tree fruits. Yes, the uni-horned rose python once said that the divine tree bears fruits once every 100 years and that there are 9 fruits each round. When the fruits ripen, the divine tree will send the 9 fruits to random locations in the continent for the lucky ones to consume. With a nod, Meng Lei went on and said, I also remember that the last time the fruits had ripened was 25 years ago. There's a whole 75 years long difference from the 100-year ripening period that the uni-horned rose python mentioned. Well, President, why has the divine tree fruits suddenly ripened 75 years in advance? That doesn't make sense. That's exactly what's making me uneasy. Amos' voice was grave as he said, Before we came to the lost continent, the fruits have always taken 100 years to ripen. Yet the moment we came, the duration was suddenly brought forward. I suspect that the divine tree is doing this deliberately. It may be scheming something. In any case, this whole thing smells fishy. What might it be scheming? Meng Lei was greatly puzzled. According to what you've said, the divine tree is highly likely a half-deity. Considering its venerable half-deity status, it could very well just kill us all. Is there the need to play schemes and games with us? That's exactly what puzzles me. Amos shook his head lightly as he said, Also, all of you have been wantonly hunting and killing magical beasts in the lost continent. It has almost reached the point of full annihilation, yet the divine tree has actually been indifferent to it. It's only when they've been annihilated that it finally made a move. This is strange. Too strange. Meng Lei asked, What do you think we should do? President, I'd suggest that we make a retreat. Well, Amos said in a low voice, Didn't you frequently say that a gentleman doesn't put himself in harm's way? Considering how the divine tree is acting so abnormally, leaving now is the smartest choice of action. Leaving? Meng Lei hesitated. The exchange competition hasn't ended yet. If I leave now, won't I be eliminated in advance? You're being muddle-headed. Amos berated him. What's the big deal about the exchange competition? Staying alive should be your #1 priority instead. I believe that with your talent, you'll eventually surpass me one day to reach unimaginable heights. By then, what is there that you wouldn't be able to get? Territory, money, power, status, women, you can have as much as you want. Is there a need to be hung up over a championship title? Listen to me, retreat first. No matter what, you must retreat to where the teleportation magic circle is first so that you can retreat safely immediately if an accident happens. I'll do that. President. Convinced? Meng Lei sent a flying kick to Sokka's but instead, Get up! We're leaving! Whoosh! At that moment, a few golden streams of light suddenly shot toward them and reached right in front of Meng Lei in just a few breaths. 1, 2, 3. They were actually 5 golden fruits. Hand over the fruits, it's her. Beside the pool was a small unit currently roasting magical beast meat at a campfire. The golden yellow roast was showing signs of charring, yet it was as if the few people in the unit hadn't realized at all. Their eyes were fixed on a golden fruit a short distance away from them. There was surprise, agitation, curiosity, perplexity, wariness, and greed in them. Did you guys hear that? Yeah. I heard it. Is the master of that voice just now the tree of life that the giant crocodile mentioned? There shouldn't be any mistake about it. Didn't it mention that the tree is the creator and guardian of this continent? So it's likely no doubt the tree of life. In other words, that golden fruit in front of us now is the tree of life fruit that the giant crocodile mentioned? A miraculous fruit that can let low-grade magical beasts become a Saint Domain magical beast in a short amount of time? Most likely. Probably. I think there's no mistake about that. Magical beasts may be able to eat it, but can we eat them too? The The members of the unit sank into silence at once. All of their eyes were flashing, their thoughts unknown. My brothers, that fruit is of unknown origins. We mustn't allow it to bewitch and deceive us. In the event that it's poison itself or some kind of highly poisonous items, wouldn't we be in for it? A short and shrewd-looking man said gravely. Before we ascertain the authenticity of that fruit, we should distance ourselves from it as much as possible, lest we invite great calamity. That makes sense. I don't dare to eat something of unknown origins like that. Everything on this continent feels strange, and that fruit's sudden appearance is even more so. We'd better not touch it. Let's just keep it for now. We'll talk about it again when we're sure of its origins. The members quickly reached an agreement. Then, all of them turned around and walked over to the campfire, paying no heed to the golden fruit anymore. Whoosh! Just as the few of them reached the campfire and sat down, ready to eat, the form of the short man who had spoken earlier suddenly flashed and darted swiftly over to the golden fruit. My brothers, this fruit is of unknown origins, and we don't know whether it's poison or a fruit. I'll sacrifice myself and try it out. As the short man spoke, he also grabbed the golden fruit and stuffed it into his mouth. At that moment, a large hand appeared out of nowhere and closed around his throat, pulling him up from the ground. The short man snapped furiously. What are you doing, Ned? Myers, are you thinking of monopolizing the fruit? The muscular man named Ned snorted and gouged the fruit out of the short man's mouth. Then he wiped it casually on his clothes and said, Even if we must test it, I should be the one to do it. You're no way even near in line for it. Then he also raised the fruit and sent it toward his mouth. Whiz, whiz. Several swords flashed as they cleaved toward Ned, almost all at the same time. Damn! Having seen it coming, Ned hastily dodged the swords cleaving toward him and snapped furiously. What are all of you doing, Frank? Put down the fruit, Ned, the other members said with cold looks on their faces. All of us discovered that fruit. How it should be handled should be discussed and decided by all of us. No one is allowed to monopolize it. Put down the fruit, Ned. Don't let it affect our relationship. We've known each other for so many years, Ned. Is such a fruit of unknown origins worth breaking our friendship over? Exactly. You're right. I was wrong. Ned, who seemed convinced, said, I'm sorry, my brothers. My anger at Myers just now has made me muddle-headed, so I acted rather rash. I hope you won't hold it against me. As he spoke, he bent over to place the fruit on the ground. However, in the instant he made contact with the ground, he grabbed a handful of sand and tossed it toward his companions. Then, with a leap, he dived into the bushes at the side and disappeared from sight. Making me hand over the fruit? Dream on. My hope for stepping into Saint Domain territory lies in this. You bastard. Ned, you bastard. Go after him. Hurry. Similar situations constantly played out in various corners of the continent. In fact, there was no lack of situations even more bitter and desperate than that. The target that the contestants were vying for had changed. It was no longer limited to just spatial rings and magic cores. What was more important were the golden fruits. The golden fruits were as though Tripitaka's one flesh. They held an endless allure that drove all the contestants crazy. Brothers killed each other, friends fell out, and lovers went at each other's throats. All of these were directly displayed on the magic screen, causing all the spectators who saw what was happening to be dumbfounded. What exactly is going on? Have all of them gone mad? Why are they backstabbing their own companions? Just what exactly are those golden fruits? The audience speculated wildly among themselves. The teachers in charge and Saint Domain experts all looked toward the Emperor. He was the one that understood the lost continent the best. Hence, he should also understand the golden fruits the best. Little did they expect that Frederick the 32nd was actually also frowning and sporting a perplexed look on his countenance. I've sent men to investigate the lost continent before, but I've never expected it to have something like those golden fruits. Frederick the 32nd sighed and said, Thus, I was also completely unaware of those golden fruits' existence. This, Even His Majesty is unaware of it? The teachers in charge looked at one another. Your Majesty, the contestants have gone rather out of control. They aren't just vying for magic cores now, but more so the golden fruits. I fear we can't let this go on, President Luke said. Even though it's unclear what those golden fruits are, the lethal attraction they pose to the contestants is enough to show that they are no ordinary objects. Allowing the contestants to vie for them at will likely lead to trouble. President Luke is right. The Royal Knights Academy president also spoke up. Moreover, the fruit's appearance was too out of the blue. Instead of showing up earlier or later, they had to pick this exact moment to show up instead. It's too fishy. What exactly those fruits are, where they came from, what they're used for, why they've appeared, and the purpose for their appearance. We don't know any of these. Another Academy president chimed in and said, "This matter is too fishy. We must treat this with the utmost care, lest it leads to unnecessary trouble and a great disaster. My beloved subjects, all of you are right." Frederick the 32nd nodded slightly and ordered, "Inform the Royal Knight Order to keep a close watch on everything happening in the Lost Continent. Once any abnormalities are discovered, be sure to guarantee the contestants' safety." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Just what are those golden fruits?" There was a deep, dark look in Frederick the 32nd's eyes. To think they've actually caused a group of young fellows as strong as 9th grade pinnacle level and bordering on Saint Domain realm to have no hesitation in tearing at one another's throats and family to harm one another? Madness. They've all gone mad. Perched on Sokka's shoulder, Meng Lei felt a rather big headache coming on as he overlooked everything happening on the continent. The entire continent had totally gone off the rails. No, to be more accurate, the contestants had totally gone off the rails. The golden fruits were just like Tripitaka flesh that was causing them to see red as they vied for them. The key was that Meng Lei had even discovered an astonishing matter. There were far more than just 9 golden fruits. There were already 5 in his possession, and the number of fruits that the other contestants were fighting one another for was far more than just 4. How could there possibly be just 9 of them in total? This is feeling more and more like a scheme, Amos said gravely. Tossing out so many fruits all of a sudden and causing all the contestants to go off the rails, this is obviously something planned in advance. Who cares? I'm leaving soon anyway. Meng Lei shook his head and said, "When I get back to the teleportation magic circle, I'll watch what happens. If there's any danger, I'll escape immediately. A gentleman doesn't put himself in harm's way." Well, Amos chuckled as he said, "A future exists only for those who are alive. You're right to do that." Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, booming sounds of intense battle suddenly came from the forest below them. The ground shook, and the mountains swayed as trees were broken in halves. Meng Lei looked over to see 2 groups of people fighting it out again. One side had 7 to 8 people, while there was only 1 person on the other side. The fight was so intense that the 2 parties were nigh inseparable. They've all gone mad. Meng Lei couldn't be bothered with them. He had seen too many of such situations along the way and gotten used to it by now. The sight was no longer surprising to him anymore. Roar! A loud, clear, and sonorous dragon roar suddenly traveled over to them. Then, a dazzling, eye-catching golden light burst forth from within the forest as dragon might surged. A golden colossal dragon. Damn! That fellow's a golden colossal dragon. Could she be Prince Barbarossa? No. She isn't. She's clearly a woman. Prince Barbarossa is a man, and I've seen him before. He doesn't look like that. Then who is she? Does His Majesty have other pure-blooded children? Who she is isn't important. What's important is that she has a golden fruit on her, and we must snatch it from her. That's our guarantee for promoting to Saint Domain. But she's royalty. So what if she's royalty? Everyone competes on equal grounds during the exchange competition. As long as we don't threaten her life, His Majesty, the Emperor won't say anything. You're right. That makes sense. We must get the golden fruit. I saw with my own eyes that Sakila broke through to Saint Domain after she ate one. Mine. The golden fruit is mine. Attack, Everyone. Kill. Roar. Another golden colossal dragon? Meng Lei stopped Sokka's and remarked, "Did you see that? OL President? It's another pure-blooded golden colossal dragon. Every emperor typically only has one pure-blooded colossal dragon offspring. It's exceedingly rare for them to have two. Why is there another one here?" OL Amos, who was looking at the golden colossal dragon in the bushes, suddenly chuckled and replied, "Evidently, it's not pure-blooded." "It's not." Taken aback, Meng Lei said, "Apart from being a little smaller, everything else about it is exactly the same as that Prince Barbarossa whom I beat into a bruised and battered state. Its size is the best form of evidence. A Saint Domain golden colossal dragon reaches 100 meters long, but that golden colossal dragon isn't even 50 meters long. Yet its aura rivals that of a Saint Domain magical beast." Amos shook his head and said with a laugh, "That's enough to show that it isn't a pure-blooded golden colossal dragon. Rather, it's the dragon transformation of a Saint Domain golden colossal dragon person that has refined and increased the purity of its bloodline." "I see." Realization dawned upon Meng Lei. But for it to develop its golden colossal dragon bloodline to such a degree before it's 30 years old, that little fellow is certainly very impressive. OL Amos marveled. "Yeah." Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then he remarked in puzzlement again, "But for some reason, I can't help but feel that that golden colossal dragon's aura feels rather familiar."
Familiar.
Taken aback, OL Amos couldn't help but take a close look at the golden colossal dragon. Then, his eyes suddenly widened as he exclaimed, "What the heck? It's her." A monk from one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature, Journey to the West. His flesh is said to bestow immortality to those that eat it. It was just a shame that the 6 assailants were similarly no simpletons. Not only were they terrifyingly strong, but they also moved with great rapport and coordination and were simply suppressing the golden colossal dragon. "Your Highness, hand over the golden fruit. As long as you hand over the fruit, we won't make things difficult for you. Your Highness, you're already a Saint Domain expert. The fruit is useless to you. As long as you hand over the golden fruit, we'll immediately." The 6 people's minds were moving as they besieged the golden colossal dragon. To be honest, they were under great pressure. After all, the golden colossal dragon in front of them was a princess of the empire. Had this not been the exchange competition, and had the golden fruits not been that important, they would never have dared to besiege a princess of the empire, no matter how bold they were. Roar! The golden colossal dragon roared furiously into the sky, not giving any sort of response at all. It sprayed golden dragon breath from its mouth and attacked the 6 assailants madly. At the sight of that, the 6 assailants' countenances gradually turned cold. "Your Highness, since you refuse to cooperate with us, then don't blame us for not being civil with you. Attack! Bring her under control first. The fruit is ours. Kill!" The 6 assailants didn't hold back anymore. They unleashed their strongest attacks one by one, their offensive power reaching several times of what it had previously been. With that, the golden colossal dragon finally couldn't quite parry their moves anymore, sinking into straitened circumstances and perilous ground. At last, it was firmly shackled on the spot by countless green vines and rendered immobile. "Your Highness, sorry about this. Molly, take her spatial ring." "Okay." A female assailant quickly bent over and began to search the golden colossal dragon. In no time, she found 2 spatial rings. "Retreat!" Their countenances overjoyed, they got ready to withdraw. Leaving right after beating someone up? Is there anything that value for money in this world? At this point, an aloof voice rang out. The 6 assailants' countenances changed, and they got into a defensive stance at once. A big, muscular black dragon person holding a broadsword among them barked fiercely. "What's so impressive about playing hide and seek? Get the hell out here if you have the guts. You sure are boastful despite not being very strong." A teenager descended from the sky and landed lightly on his feet like a falling leaf as he watched the 6 of them with a calm and peaceful expression on his face. "Who are you?" The 6 assailants were a little stunned. seemingly not having expected the intruder to actually be that young. Nevertheless, they didn't carelessly let down their guard. After so many days of the exchange competition, how could those that had managed to survive to this day possibly be people easy to get along with? The weak ones had long since been eliminated. It's him. At the same time, a huge jolt went through the golden colossal dragon trapped on the ground by vines as it watched the teenager with a look of disbelief on its face. Who I am isn't important. The teenager was indeed Meng Lei. He said calmly, "What's important is that all of you should know what I'm about to do. So, you don't need me to explain what you should do now, right? Thinking of snatching our magic cores? That'll depend on whether or not you have the ability to do so." The 6 of them sneered, and then their auras burst forth from them as they got ready to attack. They had as many as 6 people in their team. They didn't fear Meng Lei at all. "You overestimate yourselves." Meng Lei shook his head lightly. Then he grabbed the air lightly, upon which 6 leaves appeared in his palm. With the leaves in his grasp, he flicked his wrist lightly and ordered, "Go!" The featherlight leaves became incredibly sharp and sliced through the air, emitting shrill whizzes and shooting straight toward the 6 assailants. "Trying to defeat us with just a few leaves? You're going too far." The 6 assailants, who felt humiliated by Meng Lei, flew into a rage. Considering their strength, did he actually think that he could defeat them with just a few flying flowers and leaves? He was totally insulting them. However, the leaves' speed surpassed their imagination. Before they could even respond, they had already slashed across their throats. Waves of pain came over them. The 6 assailants reached out and touched their necks, upon which blood stained their hands. This, horrified and alarmed, the 6 of them stared at Meng Lei in shock and horror, only to realize that he had already vanished, his whereabouts unknown. Right on the heels of it, a dull thud rang out. Whoosh! Meng Lei floated back to where he was. By then, all 6 assailants had already collapsed onto the ground. Either clutching their abdomens, arms, or heads, they moaned in pain and groaned in agony, their previous momentum nowhere in sight anymore. "A bunch of trash." Meng Lei shook his head. Then, he paid no more attention to the 6 pathetic fellows, turned to the golden colossal dragon, and walked over. Although the golden colossal dragon was a size smaller than Prince Barbarossa, it was still enormous nevertheless. Standing in front of it, Meng Lei was no different from a dwarf. This aura, there's no mistaking it. Meng Lei gazed at the golden colossal dragon, and then a smile formed on his countenance. "I don't know what you've been through that suddenly made you a Saint Domain expert, but my instincts shouldn't be wrong. It's been a while, Abbe." As he spoke, several wind blades shot out of him and severed the infinite number of green vines trapping the golden colossal dragon. A huge jolt went through the golden colossal dragon, and a complex look flashed across its eyes. Then its body shrank rapidly, and in no time it resumed its human form. Meng Lei was stunned at once. A tall, slender figure and crystal-clear skin, beautiful, exquisite features and eyes that were bright like the stars. Splendid, elegant dragon horns and a refreshing body fragrance. A face so beautiful that it could take one's breath away. She was a beauty that could make one lose control. Despite having seen an infinite number of natural beauties, photoshopped beauties, as well as beauties shaped by cosmetic surgery in his past life, he dare say that not a single one could rival the woman currently standing in front of him. She was just like a noble fairy that had walked straight out of a fairy tale. Pure, flawless, elegant, and beautiful. There was only one word to describe her. Gorgeous. You're not Abbe. Meng Lei swallowed hard. Abbe was a man, you know. My name is Asabelle. The beauty's lips moved as she replied, her voice holding a slight chill to it. Isn't that Abbe's voice? Meng Lei was stupefied. Who exactly are you? I'm Abbe. Abbe sighed and said, It's been a while, Meng Lei. Are you really Abbe? But isn't Abbe male? Meng Lei was even more dumbfounded. Also, your looks aren't right either. You're really... Abbe was rendered speechless. Then, she took out a necklace embedded with an emerald, and a miraculous scene happened the next moment. A thin layer of mist appeared on the surface of her skin, and her originally beautiful face turned into an ordinary-looking one. It was a face that Meng Lei couldn't be any more familiar with. It was Abe's face. "You really are Abe." Meng Lei was rendered speechless. "Weren't you a guy previously? Why have you suddenly turned into a woman? Which exactly is the real you?" "I'm female," Abe explained softly. "Previously, when I was studying in Fire Dragon Magic Academy, I had disguised myself as a man in order to avoid unnecessary trouble." "All right, no wonder you were so cold to me. So you're a girl." Meng Lei shook his head. Then, he asked, "Since you're a golden colossal dragon person, and on top of that, your golden colossal dragon bloodline development has even reached such a stage, you must be a princess of the empire?" Abe stayed quiet for a brief moment before she nodded and replied, "I'm 1001st in the family, and am father's 1001st child. To the 1001st, 1001st princess." Meng Lei couldn't help but gasp. "His Majesty sure is fertile. To think he has actually given you so many brothers and sisters." "Brothers and sisters?" Abe gave a self-mocking smile and said no more. "But you sure know how to act. We've been housemates, with one living upstairs and one downstairs, for half a year. Even though we didn't speak to each other much, I really couldn't tell that you're a girl, let alone a princess." Meng Lei remarked wistfully. "If I'd known you're a princess, maybe I'd have curried favor with you properly? Who knows? Curry favor with me? Do you think I'd have believed you?" Abe rolled her eyes. "All you care about is your cultivation. Even if you had known that I was a princess, you probably wouldn't have given me the time of day anyway." "Ha ha ha. Look at what you're saying." Meng Lei gave a patronizing laugh and changed the subject. "By the way, if memory serves me right, you were just a 7th grade warrior a few months ago, weren't you? Why are you—" "About 2 to 3 months ago." Abe had barely been a 7th grade warrior after she had transformed into a golden colossal dragon person. She had even been beaten up badly by a few demi-giants. If it hadn't been for him, she would have croaked a long time ago, and yet, she was currently emanating a Saint Domain aura after transforming into a golden colossal dragon. 7th grade. Saint Domain. The change between then and now was simply too great. It was practically even more monstrous than Meng Lei's cheating. "I went to the dragon transformation pool." Abe only touched briefly on the subject. After saying the 3 words, dragon transformation pool, she didn't say any more, clearly not intending to offer any further explanation. Meng Lei could only ask OL Amos, "What's the dragon transformation pool?" "OL President. The dragon transformation pool is one of the dragon's important places." OL Amos explained. "Contained within it is the pure blood essence of ancient dragons. If drakes could go inside and cultivate there, they'd be able to greatly refine the dragon bloodline in their bodies and transform into dragons. It's just that—" "What is it?" Meng Lei hurriedly asked. "In typical situations, only drakes that have reached Saint Domain level are qualified to enter the dragon transformation pool. It's very hard for those beneath Saint Domain level to enter, even if they're the Emperor's sons or daughters." Well, Amos was rather puzzled. This isn't because the dragons are misers. Rather, it's because it's extremely dangerous inside the dragon transformation pool. So drakes weaker than Saint Domain level aren't able to handle the ancient dragon's blood essence's forcefulness at all. I really wonder how that little girl managed to endure it." Stunned, Meng Lei couldn't help but give Abe a deep, profound look. "What's wrong?" Abe was confused. "Looks like you've gone through a lot during these 2 months. But it's all right. You've come through in the end." Meng Lei shook his head lightly. "Never mind. Let's not talk about that anymore. Where are you intending to go after this? Why don't you retreat together with me?" "No. I want to continue looking for and collecting the divine tree's fruits. If it's possible, I even want to look for that tree of life and kill it so that I can take all the fruits it has." A glint shone in Abe's eyes as she spoke. "You're already a Saint Domain. Why are you so hung up over collecting the divine tree's fruits?" asked Meng Lei, who had gotten a shock from her words. "Because the golden fruits hold great use to me," Abe said in a low voice. Prior to coming to this continent, I was only at the pinnacle of 9th grade, much less able to transform into a golden colossal dragon. But after I accidentally ate a divine tree fruit, not only did I successfully break through to Saint Domain level, but the golden colossal dragon bloodline inside me was also greatly refined. I realized that the golden fruits held great use for me right away. As long as I can consume more of them, I might just be able to become a real pure-blooded golden colossal dragon. The golden fruits can do that too? Greatly astounded, Menglei asked. You're clearly already able to transform into a golden colossal dragon, though. Why do you still want to refine your bloodline? I'm still a far way off from becoming a real golden colossal dragon. Abe shook her head as she said, I need even more golden fruits. I want to do everything I can to refine the golden colossal dragon bloodline in me. The transformation into a colossal dragon and being a pure-blooded colossal dragon are two different concepts. Amos explained, under typical circumstances, as long as a dragon person's colossal dragon bloodline assimilation rate reaches 70%, they'll be able to transform into a colossal dragon. However, they're evidently still not 100% pure-blooded colossal dragons. That's right. This thing can even refine one's bloodline? With a flip of his hand, a brilliant golden divine tree fruit appeared in Menglei's palm, as though a golden apple made out of pure gold. The apple-sized golden fruit dazzled with golden light in the sunlight. I wonder if this thing can refine the god-slaying rat and golden god-slaying ant bloodlines in my body? Menglei held doubts about that. Just because the divine tree could refine the colossal dragon bloodline didn't mean that it could also refine other types of bloodlines. After all, he had as many as 5 different bloodlines in him. Menglei sought Amos' opinion and asked, President, what will happen if I eat the divine tree fruit? Don't eat it yet. Amos shook his head as he said, although the divine tree fruit seems very miraculous before we figure things out, I wouldn't suggest that you eat it. Keep them with you for now. We can talk about it again when we've figured everything out. What's the difference between eating them now and later? Anyway, there's no hurry. That makes sense. Menglei nodded slightly. Compared to risky things like that, he much preferred using the system's credit redemption to boost his strength. The divine tree fruit. Abe stared hard at the fruit, a look of longing flashing in her eyes. You managed to get them too. Yeah. I lucked out. Menglei smiled at her. It was at this moment that the sound of something whizzing through the air abruptly rang out. Then dozens of wind blades shot toward them. At the same time, other attacks also blasted toward them from all directions. A 100 meters long gigantic dragon of flames on the left. Up to 100 basketball-sized rock bullets on the right. Dozens of 10-foot-long water spears to their front. And a muscular man with a huge axe in his hand behind them. Oh no! Someone's ambushing us. The expression on Abe's pretty face changed a little. She wanted to transform into a golden colossal dragon to engage in battle right away, but Menglei only waved her off as he said, Relax. It's just a bunch of ragtags. They pose no threat. Then he tossed out a first-class spell. Absolute Zero. Buzz. A white icy air current manifested and, with Menglei and Abe in the center, spread outward in all directions. In a mere instant, it had enveloped the whole area within 10,000 meters of where they were. The gigantic dragon of flames froze. The 100 rock bullets froze. The dozens of water spears froze. And the axe-wielding muscular man also froze. The trees and weeds around them were also frozen. The 6 fellows that had besieged Abe earlier were no exception. Either they had also been frozen into popsicles. As far as the eye could see, everything was covered in white. The whole area around them had turned into a world of ice. Absolute Zero. And instant release at that. Abe took a breath and lamented. Not only has the gap between the two of us not shrunk, but it's instead becoming bigger and bigger. It's not that huge. Haven't you been promoted to Saint Domain level, too? With a light snap of Menglei's fingers, all the ice sculptures within 10,000 meters of where they were broke into pieces, turning into ice chips that scattered all over the ground. Only the 6 assailants and the few people that had launched the sneak attack just now remained where they were. It was obvious at one glance that a total of 5 people, including the axe-wielding muscular man, had attacked them. It was just that the 5 of them were currently ice sculptures, with every one of them frozen in a peculiar pose. They either had a shocked look on their faces, were in the midst of chanting a spell incantation, or sported looks of excitement in their eyes. All of their facial expressions varied, and their manners of bearing also different from one another's. You can only count yourselves unlucky for choosing to ambush me. What happened next was evident body searching, looking for spatial rings, and taking them for himself. Tisk, these 5 must be pretty strong. They've actually gotten so many magic cores. Not bad. They even have a golden fruit, too. Meng Lei was grinning so widely that his face was all wrinkled. Disregarding the golden fruit, for now, just the magic cores in their spatial rings alone already made up an astonishingly high number. All of these were money to him. I really don't know how you managed to cultivate to such a level. Abe's eyes were filled with envy. We haven't seen each other for only 2 months, yet you're already so strong. The next time we meet, would you have already broken through to become a half-deity? A half-deity? That's too far a notion. As Meng Lei kept the fruit and the spatial rings, he said, I'm about to leave this place. Why don't you leave with me? 2. This continent is currently fraught with great danger. It's not safe here. No, I want to continue looking for the divine tree fruits and the tree of life. Abe rejected his offer and said, the fruits can refine my bloodline. I will never give up, no matter what. That mentality of yours is too dangerous. Meng Lei frowned as he said, I suspect that the Tree of Life is a half-deity that's currently plotting some kind of conspiracy. If you go looking for it, how is that any different from sending yourself straight to death's door? Let's just leave. A half-deity? A huge jolt went through Abe. All the living things on the entire lost continent worship the Tree of Life. It's highly likely that it's a half-deity. Meng Lei shook his head lightly as he said, staying in a half-deity's territory is simply too dangerous. Also, even if you do get more of the divine tree fruits, don't eat them anymore. Those things aren't safe. A look of indignant reluctance came over Abe's features at once. A brief moment later, she surprisingly shook her head and said, Thank you, Meng Lei, but I'm not leaving. Then, she rose into the sky and flew away. Meng Lei opened his mouth but ultimately chose not to call out to her. Abe was a stubborn one. Meng Lei had already had a taste of that a long time ago. Never mind. Do what you want, then. Meng Lei shook his head as he remarked. I've already said what I should. It's up to her whether or not she wants to heed the warning. Then he also left the area. Why aren't you going after her, kid? Not only is she gorgeous, but she's even a princess of the empire. There are so many out there who wish to be her knight in shining armor yet couldn't. To think you've actually given up such a prime opportunity. I'm really suspecting more and more that your carnal desires are undeveloped. No one's going to mistake you for a mute if you speak a little less, old president. Let's go, Sakas. After Meng Lei left, Abe walked out from behind a tree. As she stared at the departing Meng Lei, she murmured softly, I wish I could leave with you, Meng Lei, but I can't. A day later, Meng Lei finally returned to the seashore where they had been when they had first arrived on the continent. Let's wait here. I'll be able to leave in another couple of days. After finding himself a remote beach, he then took out a large 10 meters wide golden pot, ready for another hotpot feast. Are we having seafood hotpot again, boss? At the sight of that, Sakas obediently went to catch seafood again. An hour later, a bonfire blazed into the sky as soup bubbled and boiled in the pot. An aroma rushed toward them as a human, and a beast sat around the hot pot and feasted. I want abalone, boss. Give me that geoduck, boss. I want more, boss. I want some more. Time went by very quickly, and a day passed. There was currently only a day left to the end of the exchange competition's month-long duration. Meng Lei laid on the soft beach and bathed in the warm, mild sun as he waited for the exchange competition to end. Boom! A tremor suddenly went through the ground. Boom! Another tremor. Boom! Right on the heels of it, the ground began to shake and tremble rhythmically. It felt like 10,000 horses galloping across the fields, yet also like tanks crushing the ground. The entire continent was booming and shaking. What's going on? Meng Lei quickly soared into the sky and looked around, upon which he was immediately stunned into a daze. In the continent's center, a far distance off, stood a massive tree so tall that there was no telling its height and so wide that one couldn't tell its trunk circumference. It seemed like the Jianmu tree one that connected the heavens and earth, yet also like the Yggdrasil too, whose roots were entrenched into the earth. Standing erect between heaven and earth, the towering tree branches were as though passageways to heaven, while the lofty tree crown shrouded the area 10,000 miles from where it was. When looking from afar, clouds could be seen circling around it. The sun's multicolored radiance reflected upon it as the phenomenal scene went through a million grand changes. The most inconceivable thing was that the massive tree was covered in several gold chains that wrapped around it like a net. A majestic and holy might emanated from the massive tree, reaching straight into the heavens and wantonly oppressed Meng Lei's spirit, giving him the urge to submit to it, convert his faith to it, and prostrate before it. The tree of life, Meng Lei exclaimed softly. "OL President, is that the tree of life?" "Yes, it's the tree of life." "Well," Amos emerged and said, "This aura is divine power. Though faint, it's nevertheless no doubt divine power. There's no mistaking it. I was right. It really is a half-deity." "So it really is a half-deity." Meng Lei's heart quivered. He felt an urge to immediately return to the teleportation magic circle and make an escape. Against a massive tree of half-deity status, he really didn't possess even a shred of confidence. As for Sokka's the multi-armed behemoth, in the instant it saw the tree of life, it was already prostrating on the ground, so agitated that tears filled its eyes as it loudly prayed to and extolled the greatness of the tree. "Something isn't right. That half-deity's aura is so weak. It can't even compare to a Saint Domain Limits level experts. What's going on? Are we too far away from it?" Well, Amos, whose brows were tightly drawn together into a huge frown, stared hard at the massive tree for a moment. Then he suddenly exclaimed in a low voice, "The gold chains! I get it now. That tree of life has been sealed. It has been sealed." "Sealed?" Meng Lei was dumbfounded. "Do you see those gold chains around the tree of life? That's the seal. The tree of life has been sealed. That's why it's giving off such weak divine power." Well, Amos smacked his forehead as he said, "I knew it. Even though it was indifferent the whole time while all of you were wantonly killing its worshippers in its territory, it wasn't done out of choice. Rather, it's because it has been sealed and is totally immobile. That's the actual reason why." Meng Lei asked with a dazed look in his eyes. "Just what kind of existence can seal a half-deity like the tree of life? There'll always be someone stronger out there, and there's no limit to how high one can go. There is no lack of existences stronger than a half-deity. Heaven's vault continent is ultimately just a small pond." Amos shook his head slightly. Then, he suddenly frowned and asked, "Meng Lei, are a lot of black dots floating around the tree of life?" Meng Lei hurriedly looked over. Although they were a great distance away from the tree of life, he saw many tiny little black dots. Those little black dots were suspended around the tree of life like insects around a willow in summer. A puzzled Meng Lei asked, "What are those little black dots?" "We're too far away, so it's hard to tell." "Go a little nearer." Well, Amos said gravely, "Don't worry, it's been sealed, so as long as we're not too near, it can't do anything to you." "Okay." After a moment's hesitation, Meng Lei flew toward it. As he approached, the black dots also became bigger and bigger. He could now see them clearly after he reached a certain distance. Those dense and packed black dots were actually the exchange competition's contestants. And apart from them, there were also many other unfamiliar-looking figures. Those figures wore golden armor, held broadswords, and rode golden beasts. They were clearly all golden-armored knights. As he continued to approach, he could vaguely see a thin golden shield around the tree of life. Some of the contestants were enveloped within the golden shield, while all the golden-armored knights were fervently attacking the golden shield, seemingly trying to rescue them. "What are they doing?" Meng Lei was rather bewildered. "Damn, They've been tricked. They're attacking the seal. Once the seal is destroyed, the tree of life would be released. 1. Literally building wood. A holy tree worshipped in ancient times and said to bridge the celestial and mortal realms in Chinese mythology. 2. An immense and central sacred tree in Norse mythology. Can't you tell? With a severe look on his face, Owl Amos explained gravely. The divine tree fruits are just bait. Bait that it tossed out in order to lure contestants like you. What's tragic is that many of the contestants had actually fallen for it. Thus, they are now trapped within the seal, unable to escape. And then, in order to rescue them, the Empire will definitely send experts to attack the seal, ultimately rescuing the Tree of Life and releasing it, too. A conspiracy. This is a total conspiracy from the start to the very end. Meng Lei hurriedly asked, "What will happen if the Tree of Life breaks the seal?" "Oh, President, isn't that obvious?" "Well," Amos barked. "What do you think will happen when a sealed half-deity is freed?" Meng Lei couldn't help but shiver at the thought. "Meng Lei, you must stop them from attacking the seal at once. Otherwise, it'll lead to a great disaster." "Stop them." Meng Lei was hesitant. He couldn't wait to escape and go far, far away from the Tree of Life at the moment. Yet he was telling him to stop those guys? The Tree of Life is currently sealed, so the degree of risk has been greatly reduced. While Amos said gravely, "What you need to do is just to stop them. If nothing goes wrong, it won't be dangerous." "All right." As he went nearer and nearer, the view also became clearer and clearer. The Tree of Life's branches were too thick, too tall. Taller and thicker than any great mountains that Meng Lei had ever seen. Its crown was too large, too lush. Just like a gigantic halo, it enveloped the sky within 10,000 miles of where it was. Big, tall, lofty, and majestic. Vast and extensive. Who'd have thought that a massive life form like that actually exists in the world? Nature is indeed miraculous. Meng Lei was thoroughly astounded. And what's even more inconceivable is that someone has actually sealed a fearsome life form like that. As he got nearer and nearer, the view also became clearer and clearer. Branches flourished from the Tree of Life, leafy and lush. And amid the luxuriant leaves bore an abundance of golden fruits. A quick glance revealed that the tree was filled with them. Just how many divine tree fruits are there? And just how much will I earn if I sell them all? Meng Lei swallowed hard, suddenly understanding why so many contestants had been lured there. Given the numerous divine tree fruits on it, just how great of an allure did it pose? Who would be able to resist it? Nobody at all. At last he came close to it. A mountainous ridge when viewed horizontally and a high peak when viewed from the side. Far, near, high, and low, different from every angle. Why couldn't one tell the true form of Mount Lu? For they stand within part of the mountain they have become one. At this point, it was no longer possible for him to get a full view of the Tree of Life. All that entered one's sight was just a big, tall, and rough wall. The Tree of Life's trunk. Wrapped all around the surface of the trunk was an infinite number of chains formed from golden magic sigils. Like a fishing net, they wrapped all around the tree. The chains spread out, ultimately forming another golden shield around the Tree of Life and sealing it within. At the same time, the golden shield also trapped almost 100 unfortunate souls within. In other words, the 100-odd contestants that had also been sealed inside. Floating outside the golden shield were thousands of people. Aside from a few dozen contestants, the rest were all broadsword-wielding, beast-riding golden-armored knights. Where did these guys come from? Meng Lei stared at the golden-armored knights, somewhat puzzled. Judging from their gear, they are likely the Royal Holy Knight Order. "Oh, Amos replied. "The Royal Holy Knight Order is the Empire's most elite troops. Even the weakest among them possesses 9th-grade pinnacle-level strength. Why are they here?" Meng Lei was puzzled. Weren't the contestants supposed to be the only ones on the Lost Continent? If I'm not wrong, the Royal Holy Knight Order is in charge of protecting the contestants' safety during the exchange competition. "Well," Amos instructed, "get them to stop Meng Lei. If they continue to attack, they'll break the seal sooner or later. At the moment, Be it the Holy Knight Order or the 100-odd contestants inside the shield, all of them were fervently attacking the golden shield. Every attack from them caused the golden shield to reverberate intensely, which in turn caused the entire continent to shake along with it. It seemed like the seal was connected to the whole continent itself. All right, I know what to do now. Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then, he took a deep breath and shouted, "Stop attacking, everyone. Listen to what I have to say." His voice wasn't very loud, but it reached everyone clearly. Everyone stopped attacking one by one and turned to him. Meng Lei. Someone who recognized him called out his name. Who's he? However, there were more of them that didn't know who he was, and all of them broke into frowns. Stop attacking, everyone. Listen to me first. As the puzzled crowd gazed at him, Meng Lei said, "All of you can sense the divine power that this huge tree here is giving off, right?" "That's right. This tree is a half-deity." "A half-deity?" A jolt went through some of them as their countenances changed dramatically. All of them were just weak contestants that didn't have any idea of the Tree of Life's background. However, the rest of them, in particular the Royal Holy Knight Order, showed practically no response to his words. Evidently, they were already aware of the Tree of Life's background since a long time ago. Or perhaps they'd determined its identity based on the divine power that the Tree of Life emanated. After all, its mighty divine power was right there for all to see. It wasn't hard for them to make the judgment. Meng Lei continued and said, "But this half-deity has evidently been sealed. That's why we can stand here safely right now." Then, he changed the course of the conversation and said, "But what are all of you doing? You're attacking the seal, and helping it to break out of its seal. Aren't you afraid that, by destroying the seal, you'll really set the Tree of Life free?" Nobody had anything to say to that. In particular, all the knights of the Royal Holy Knight Order sank into total silence. Evidently, they were aware of what they were doing and also knew the consequences of their actions. Therefore, I hope that everyone can cease their attacks at once. Meng Lei's voice was low and grave as he said, "Once the Tree of Life breaks the seal, all of us will die. Nobody will be able to escape. That's all I have to say. Think about it yourselves." Then, Meng Lei turned, ready to leave. He didn't know what they would do after hearing what he had to say, but that was all he could do. Now that he'd fulfilled his objective, it was time to leave. "Sir, we fully understand what you're saying." A golden colossal dragon person dressed in royal armor stepped forward at this point. He had a pair of golden horns on his head and a pair of golden wings on his back. As he pointed at the Tree of Life trapped within the golden shield, he said slowly, "We know that it's a half-deity life form, and we also know that we're currently attacking the seal, but we have no other choice. Our mission is to ensure the safety of every contestant and eradicate all external forces that interfere with the exchange competition. Therefore, it is our duty to protect every contestant. However, more than 100 contestants are currently trapped. In fact, they are sharing the same space with the half-deity Tree of Life. Their safety has come under serious threat. We must rescue them and ensure their safety, while also ensuring that the exchange competition is running smoothly. This is our mission as well as our duty. But by doing so, you'll bring harm to everyone." Meng Lei was mildly taken aback. Just as he was about to persuade him further, Amos' voice suddenly rang out. "Look, Meng Lei, your little princess housemate seems to be in there, too." Meng Lei hurriedly looked over. True enough, he spotted Asabelle among those 100-odd contestants. She stood behind the contestants, quietly watching him. Upon noticing his line of sight, she lowered her head at once. "Asabelle." Meng Lei was dismayed. There are also quite a few other familiar faces in there aside from her. Amos went on. "That netherworld white tiger person, Francis from the Fire Dragon Kingdom, and even that pure-blooded golden colossal dragon prince. No wonder the Royal Holy Knight Order is attacking the seal so desperately. To think the future emperor is also trapped inside. So many of them." Meng Lei couldn't help but gasp. "Actually, you don't need to worry, sir." The golden colossal dragon person spoke up again. He said, "We've already reported the situation to His Majesty. I believe that in no time, His Majesty will dispatch experts here to destroy that evil half-deity Treant. The Empire's experts? Meng Lei was startled. Can the Empire's experts stand against a half-deity? Typical experts definitely can't, unless it's a half-deity. Well, Amos nodded and said, if a half-deity really comes forward, then dealing with that tree of life won't be a problem. I'm just afraid that the Emperor can't get them to do it. Is there also a half-deity in the Dragon God Empire? Meng Lei was a little startled. Why haven't I heard anyone mentioning it before? Duh! If the great Dragon God Empire didn't have a half-deity presence, it'd have been destroyed by other empires a long time ago. Well, Amos scoffed derisively and said, and it's not just the Dragon God Empire. The Titan Empire, the Beast People Empire, the Fairy Empire, and even some ancient clans living in seclusion, all of them have half-deity presences among them. It's just that half-deities, as existences that stand above saint domains and below deities, represent the strongest form of combat power in Heaven's Vault continent. They usually only exist as strategic deterrents. In most typical situations, half-deities tend to stay behind the scenes. Unless situations such as the Empire facing the threat of subjugation arise, they almost never make an appearance. I see. Realization dawned upon Meng Lei, who then asked, well, President, what did you mean when you said that His Majesty might not be able to get the half-deity to come forward? The Emperor can command ordinary saint domains, but if he wants to request something of a half-deity, it's a hard task to achieve, Amos said dispassionately. In truth, even a saint domain limits level expert can ignore the Emperor if they want to. Meng Lei shook his head lightly as he remarked, looks like not even the Emperor is almighty. Almighty? You're thinking too much. Amos was rather disdainful as he said, Heaven's Vault continent is ultimately a world where the strong rule. Power will always come first and foremost. Status is but just something that comes with power. There are many experts in the Dragon God Empire who don't fear the Emperor at all. In fact, even the Emperor has to bow respectfully in greeting when he meets the Dragon Kings who stand above the Saint Domain realm and the half-deities. Remember this, in the Dragon God Empire, there is no lack of people who can be the Emperor, but there are only so many Dragon Kings and half-deities. You can do without an Emperor, but you can't do without a Dragon King or a half-deity. In other words, whether the Empire's half-deity will make an appearance or not depends on whether they'll act on account of the Emperor. Meng Lei was rendered speechless. Exactly. After all, most half-deities are striving hard for the goal of deification. To them, time is even more valuable than laws of nature origin crystals. Where are they going to find the time to bother with trifling matters like this? Amos shook his head. What should we do then? What should we do? Leave, of course. Amos snorted and said, it goes back to the same thing. A gentleman does not put himself in harm's way. Whether or not the Empire's half-deity comes, you have to ensure your safety first and foremost. I'm reminding you, your little princess housemate may be beautiful and gorgeous, but she's not worth you putting yourself in danger yet. President, you must have been a cold and heartless scumbag when you were young, right? Meng Lei couldn't stop himself from rolling his eyes. A scumbag? Please, I'm a lifelong bachelor. One written on the wall at West Forest Temple. A poem by Su Shi. To think there's such a lofty and majestic tree in this world. How inconceivable. That tree is so massive. It's probably no ordinary tree. A gigantic tree towering straight into the sky appeared on the Dragon God Cathedral's huge magic screen. It stood erect in the continent's center, towering tall and straight into the sky above the sea of forests. The mountains were reduced to mere props while the ancient trees became its background. It was simply too huge and too majestic. One could neither see to the top nor the ends of it. The moment it entered their sights, it astounded everyone, ranging all the way from Emperor Frederick XXXII to every single civil and martial official. All of them were dumbstruck and flabbergasted. Frederick XXXII was terribly alarmed. Why didn't the surveillance team discover a life form like that in the lost continent? Nobody knew whether or not they had discovered it. But Frederick XXXII had already realized that the lost continent was far more unsafe than what he'd thought. The contestants, They were in danger. Reporting. It was at this moment that a golden-armored knight walked out of the teleportation magic circle. Your Majesty, a half-deity life form has appeared in the lost continent. 100 contestants, including Prince Barbarossa and the others, have been captured, and their lives are in peril. What? Everyone got up at once, an indescribable astoundment brimming in their eyes. All of them were shocked. The Emperor barked fiercely. Are you sure? The golden-armored knight replied loudly. Your Majesty, it is the absolute truth. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. All the Saint Domain experts turned to the Emperor at once. The princes, princesses, nobles, and officials also turned to him. Everyone knew that things had gotten serious. A half-deity life form had appeared in the lost continent, and it had captured 100 contestants, including Prince Barbarossa. This was no longer an accident on a small scale but a serious matter that threatened to undermine the Empire's core. Once mishandled, not only would the Empire make an enemy out of a half-deity, but it would also cause irreversible losses for the Empire. This was an extremely serious matter. Frederick the 32nd, who was facing everyone's anxious, anticipative eyes, slowly closed his eyes. He said, by sending all the contestants to the lost continent without careful consideration, when we aren't yet clear on the situation in the lost continent, I have sinned. Your Majesty, everyone exclaimed in low voices. However, it is nigh the time to pursue the matter of accountability now. What's most imperative right now is to dispatch men to the lost continent and rescue the contestants. Frederick the 32nd stepped forward. Summon the senior statesmen's assembly at once and order the Grand Elder, Second Elder, and Third Elder to follow me to Dragon Island to request aid from the Grandmasters. Yes, Your Majesty. An official bowed in acknowledgement and hastily went to deliver the imperial order. My beloved subjects, you're dismissed, said Frederick the 32nd as he looked at everyone. President Luke hurriedly stepped forward and requested, Your Majesty, the contestants are in critical peril. I am willing to head to the lost continent in advance to investigate the situation. If it is permissible, perhaps that may help a little with the situation. Me too, Your Majesty. We cannot stand by and wait idly while our students are trapped. I request to head to the lost continent in advance to investigate the situation. Your Majesty. For a moment there, all the academy presidents and teachers in charge requested to be deployed to the lost continent to rescue their students. I am greatly moved by your sincerity, my beloved subjects. Unfortunately, a half-deity occupies the lost continent. All of you heading there is no different from moths flying into the fire, seeking death. Frederick the 32nd shook his head lightly. Everyone had better just wait for my good news. As long as the Grandmasters are willing to help, a mere native half-deity can be wiped out with just a flick of the fingers. Your Majesty, my mind is set. Say no more. Frederick the 32nd threw back his long sleeves, and then he rose into the air and flitted toward the palace. A group of palace attendants, princes, and princesses hastily followed after him. All the Saint Domains looked at one another, sighing one by one. In the lost continent, protecting the safety of all the contestants and ensuring that the exchange competition doesn't suffer interference from external forces. These are missions, as well as our duty, that His Majesty the Emperor has given us, the Holy Knight Order. With a brandish of the broadsword in his hand, the golden colossal dragon person shouted, Where doth our duty lie? With glory it lies. With glory it lies. With glory it lies. The knights of the Holy Knight Order roared. For the Holy Knight Order's duty and for the Holy Knight Order's glory, I order all of you to continue to attack. With glory it lies. With glory it lies. Boom, boom, boom. The Royal Holy Knight Order resumed their attacks on the Golden Shield. With their great strength and sheer numbers, thousands upon thousands of attacks struck the Golden Shield, causing the thin Golden Shield to shake violently as if it'd shatter any moment. Evil deity, release the contestants at once. The golden colossal dragon person shouted as he attacked. The half-deity expert from the Dragon God Empire is descending any moment now. This was originally just an insignificant threat, but unexpectedly, the Tree of Life, upon hearing the threat, seemed to have been triggered. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Up to 100 vines suddenly flew into the air and morphed into innumerable pythons that assailed the 100-odd contestants. The vines weren't particularly fast. They moved at snail-like speeds. Hence the contestants easily evaded their attacks. However, an aged voice suddenly rang out the next moment. God's domain. Buzz. A strange energy wave descended. Instantly, the 100-odd contestants were frozen to the spot as if their acupoints had been sealed. They stood there just like that, still and motionless. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The vines crept over slowly and wound around the contestants again and again. In no time, they had wrapped around them and turned them into dumplings. What's going on? Everyone was rather dumbstruck. God's domain. That's God's domain. Amos exclaimed. It's an ability that only half-deities can use. Not only can it freeze space-time, but it can also imprison everything in the world. As expected, the Tree of Life really is a half-deity. We can be completely sure of that now. God's domain. A huge jolt went through Meng Lei. Go, Meng Lei. Hurry and leave. Amos urged him. It was triggered by that fool just now. On the off chance that the Tree of Life goes berserk and tries to break the seal at all cost. All of you will die. Leave. Meng Lei couldn't help but look at Asabelle, and the moment he did, an intense shiver went through him. The vines winding around the contestants had actually stabbed into them and were madly absorbing their life force. Help! Help me! I don't want to die! All the contestants whom the vines had wound around were actually visibly shriveling up. Asabelle was no exception to that either. Little by little, her jade-like, crystal-clear skin started to lose its luster, shriveling and drying up bit by bit. Asabelle! Meng Lei was terribly shocked. Go! You little bastard, go! Amos urged him loudly. You won't be able to save her. You won't. Leave this place immediately. Out of sight, out of mind. But President. Meng Lei was in a struggle. There are no buts to be had. The two of you are just mere acquaintances. That bit of friendship is not worth risking your life for. Amos berated him loudly. Besides, what can you do even if you rush in there? Can you save her? You can't. Not only will you not be able to save her, but you'll even throw your own life away instead. It's not worth it. Meng Lei, you're a saint domain. Be more rational. Meng Lei fell silent. He was indeed rather weak at the moment. Don't bother with me, Meng Lei. Asabelle shook her head hard. This is what I've chosen. I have no regrets. There's no need for you to throw your own life away. Then, she suddenly smiled, next to her gradually shriveling skin. Her smile seemed as though a flower that was gradually withering and looked extraordinarily tragic. I was born into the royal family and was all by myself since I was young with no one loving or doting on me. I had no family, no friends, until I met you. You saved me twice. To me, you're my only friend. If anything untoward happens to you because of me, I will live in guilt, regret, distress, and pain for the rest of my life. Go, Meng Lei. Live on. Live on properly. Asabelle's eyes gradually dimmed and dulled. A single teardrop rolled off the corner of her eye on her dried-up face. Your only friend? Meng Lei took a deep breath. Maybe I can't stay so miserly anymore. Then, he licked his lips and ordered, System, be on standby at all times. Let's go crazy together later. Then, shatter. With a shout, Meng Lei smashed his fist against the golden shield. What are you doing, brat? Amos was aghast. Are you crazy? Don't worry. President. I know what I'm doing. Meng Lei continued to launch a series of frenzied attacks on the golden shield, much like a raging bull. Bam, bam, bam. It was just a pity that despite the golden shield shaking violently as if it would shatter any moment, it ultimately didn't. With a silent curse, a dark golden hammer appeared in Meng Lei's hand. Come on, break! Meng Lei leaped high into the air and smashed the hammer down madly. Boom! A shocking, thunderous boom erupted. Amid crisp-sounding cracks, A few cracks appeared on the surface of the golden shield. Then, more and more of them appeared, instantly spreading throughout the golden shield like a spider web. Crash! The golden shield broke apart in an instant the next moment, turning into countless glowing particles that dissipated into the universe. Abe! Break! As Meng Lei smashed the dark gold hammer about in a frenzy, the vines that had wound around Abe broke at the roots. Then, Meng Lei reached out and caught hold of her. "How are you feeling, Abe?" Abe's peerless beauty from before was nowhere in sight anymore. What was left was just a dry, shriveled-up face covered in wrinkles. Meng Lei. As though she had heard him, Abe slowly opened her eyes and said weakly, Meng Lei, don't be bother, with me. Go, hurry, and go. OL President, what do I do now? Meng Lei hurriedly looked at OL Amos and asked, "Can she still be saved?" "Sigh, what a sin." Well, Amos let out a faint sigh and said, "The Tree of Vitality's branch can save her." "The Tree of Vitality's branch?" Right. The Tree of Vitality's branch. Why did I throw that out of my mind? Meng Lei hastily brought out the Tree of Vitality's branch. Then he asked, "How do I use this thing, OL President?" Well, Amos sighed again and again as he replied, "Squeeze out the life force essence in it and feed it to her." "All right." Meng Lei nodded, and then he squeezed the branch forcefully. "Abe, open your mouth." 1 drop, 2, 3. Then, something amazing happened, as if rain descending upon dry riverbeds, as if the spring breeze blowing across a frozen creek, as if the blazing sun shining upon the moistened ground, facing the evil deity Extreme Credit Redemption. It works. The Tree of Vitality's branch is working. Meng Lei couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. "How are you feeling, Abe?" "You shouldn't have saved me, Meng Lei." Abe, who had recovered a bit of spirit, stared at Meng Lei in a daze as a layer of mist formed in her beautiful eyes. "You shouldn't have. No matter what, we're housemates and classmates. It's inexcusable behavior if I leave you to die when saving you is within my means." With a laugh, Meng Lei helped Abe up and said, "Let's go. We'll leave this place and talk again when we reach somewhere safe." "Okay." Abe didn't speak any further. She rested her head against Meng Lei's chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. Meng Lei's embrace suddenly felt so safe, so firm, and so warm to her. At the same time, the Royal Holy Knight Order also rushed over to rescue the other 100-odd contestants, who didn't receive the same treatment as Abe, of course. Whether or not they would survive would depend on fate itself. The golden colossal dragon person urged them loudly, "Hurry! Evacuate the contestants. Since you're here, then don't bother leaving." The aged voice rang out again at this point, upon which a shocking scene then played out. Countless golden rays of light appeared out of nowhere, and then they converged into yet another golden shield which trapped everyone within. Bam! Meng Lei was thrown right out upon crashing against the golden shield. The others were no better. Every single one of them was also flung back to where they'd originally been. Everyone's expressions took on a dramatic change. "What's going on?" Meng Lei, who was flustered and panicked, asked. "Didn't I already break the seal, OL President? Why has it appeared again?" "I don't know either." The situation was driving OL Amos rather mad, too. "Damn! The barrier has appeared again. Attack! Attack the barrier at once, everyone!" Boom, boom, boom. The Royal Holy Knight Order launched into yet another series of frenzied attacks. "Wait a moment here, Abe." The dark gold hammer appeared in Meng Lei's hand again. With flames of fury burning in his eyes, he imbued all of his strength into the hammer and smashed it heavily against the shield. Boom! As the dark gold hammer smashed against the golden shield, the terrifying recoil of the impact threw Meng Lei out. Yet the golden shield didn't shake even a little, let alone become destroyed. "No way!" Meng Lei roared furiously. "One more time!" Boom! 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 1 hit. 2. 3. In spite of that, the golden shield stood as enduring as rock, not wavering in the least. "Why is this happening?" Meng Lei's eyes were bloodshot. Why has the golden shield become so much sturdier? While Amos' voice was deep, low, and trembling a little as he replied, Meng Lei, we might have been tricked. Tricked? A huge jolt went through Meng Lei. Don't bother trying anymore, little fellow. The aged voice rang out once more. Then, a gigantic human visage appeared on the tree of life's trunk. The human visage's mouth opened and closed as it scoffed. This is my territorial barrier. How can a saint domain like you possibly break it? The tree of life, Meng Lei exclaimed as he swung around. The others also looked toward the huge human visage on the tree trunk. Under everyone's gazes, the golden chains all around the tree of life disappeared little by little until they were all gone. The seal was gone. At the same time, a vast, mighty divine power emanated from the tree of life, crashing down on everyone's hearts. Boom! One after another, everyone plummeted onto the ground. They felt as if a mountain was crushing down upon their shoulders, as if great boulders were weighing down on their chests, and as if something was clenched tight around their hearts. Hardly able to breathe, it felt exceptionally horrible. We've been tricked. We've indeed been tricked. Well, Amos bellowed madly. It wasn't sealed. Brat, the so-called seal doesn't exist at all. It tricked us. It tricked us all. Why would it do something like that? Meng Lei couldn't understand its motives. Just how strong is a great half-deity? If it wishes to take our lives, all it needs is just a mere thought. So why would it go to so much trouble to scheme something like this? While Amos shook his head, he really had no idea why. Why? Meng Lei's eyes bore into the tree of life as he asked, Why are you doing this? You're a great half-deity, you know? A half-deity? But that's ultimately still not a true deity. The tree of life gave him a non-committal smile as it said, You must be very puzzled as to why I did all these, right? Yes, why? Shouted Meng Lei. Because of you, answered the tree of life with a slight smile. Me? Meng Lei was momentarily stunned. Then he sneered. I am but just a saint domain. Am I worth going to such lengths for? Of course you aren't. But there's something on you that is. The tree of life said aloofly. For the sake of obtaining it, no matter how much I have to do, it's all worth it. And now it should return to its original owner. Something on me? Stupefied, Meng Lei pointed at himself. Amos was just as stupefied as him, while the others also looked at one another in confusion. What exactly are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. A frowning Meng Lei shouted. Are you talking about your fruits? You cunning human. Stop playing dumb. The tree of life snorted icily and said, I've sensed that thing's presence ever since you arrived at the lost continent. From that moment onward, I knew at once that that's the object that I lost a long time ago. It has finally returned. It pleases me greatly to know that. But I'm also furious because you're simply too sly. Not only did you not return it to me, but you even went into hiding and constantly avoided me. I was terribly enraged, so I could only resort to such painstaking measures. Fortunately, the outcome is still somewhat satisfactory. The tree of life's voice grew louder and more sonorous as it commanded. You cunning human, hand over that thing in your sea of consciousness. It belongs to me. Or else, you'd better not blame me if I come personally to take it from you. By then, you won't be the only one dead. All of them will be, too. That thing in my sea of consciousness? You're referring to... A huge jolt went through Meng Lei, who had immediately thought of something. Aside from the soul flame, there was only one other object in his sea of consciousness. That golden leaf. That golden leaf which he had obtained from the parchment manuscript had been occupying a spot in his sea of consciousness all this time. Apart from giving him the superbly strong wood elemental magic talent, Meng Lei knew absolutely next to nothing about it. What exactly was it? Even now, Meng Lei still hadn't figured it out yet. But one could imagine that it must be no ordinary artifact. It belonged to the tree of life? Amos hurriedly asked. Meng Lei, what is it talking about? It's talking about the golden leaf. Meng Lei didn't keep it a secret from Amos. The golden leaf? A startled Amos said. But that's a divine weapon. How can it be the Tree of Lifes? It shouldn't be. Its aura differs completely from the Tree of Lifes. What the hell? It can't be that that thing has taken an interest in the golden leaf, so it's thinking of snatching it from you. You don't say. That might really just be the case. Meng Lei flew into a rage at once. You keep going on and on about how it belongs to you, but in truth, it's because you've discovered my divine weapon and are plotting murder for gain. Disregarding the fact that it's a divine weapon, so I can't bear to give it to you at all. Even if I do have the intentions to, I can't get it to move either. Occupying a spot in Meng Lei's mind, the golden leaf. Apart from absorbing the wood elements in the universe every moment of the day, paid no heed to Meng Lei at all. Hand it over? Yeah, right. Am I supposed to burrow into my own sea of consciousness and gouge it out for you? What a dumbass. Meng Lei, did you really take something that belongs to the Tree of Life? Everyone had been watching Meng Lei closely the whole time, so they had fully witnessed the changes in his facial expressions. Many of them became furious at once. What exactly did you take from the Tree of Life? Hurry and hand it over. That's right. Bold of you to actually steal something from a half-deity. Take it if you must, but you shouldn't have implicated us. Take a look at Prince Barbarossa and the others. They are close to dying because of you? All the contestants trapped within the golden shield denounced Meng Lei, venting their anger and frustrations on him. The royal holy knight's expressions weren't very pleasant, either. The golden colossal dragon person leading them said in a low, deep voice, "Sir, for the sake of everyone's safety, you'd better hand it over." Ha ha ha. Furious to the extreme, Meng Lei burst into laughter instead. Was it me that had embroiled all of you in this? If all of you hadn't fought over the divine tree's fruits, would you have landed yourselves in such a predicament? You can only blame your own greed for this, as well as yourselves for reaping what you've sown. What has it got to do with me? Meng Lei then looked at the Tree of Life and sneered coldly. Not only have I not taken anything of yours, but even if I have, do you think I'll return it to you when it's already in my hands? Human, you're challenging a deity's authority. A vast, majestic wave of divine power weighed down on Meng Lei as the Tree of Life spoke in a low and deep voice. I'll give you one last chance. Hand over that thing, and I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, don't blame me for being heartless and ruthless. Hurry and return that thing to the Tree of Life, Meng Lei. You're holding everyone's lives in your hands. Come on. Return it to the tree, Meng Lei. Take it as I'm begging you. For the last 18 generations, my family has only had one son in every generation, so I can't die here. Otherwise, it'll be the end of my family lineage. Meng Lei, I have a 200-years-old mother to support and a 3-year-old toddler to feed. Upon hearing the Tree of Life's threat, many of the contestants were badly frightened. They either cursed at him, threatened him, or pleaded with him, but one thing stayed the same. All of them wanted Meng Lei to hand over the golden leaf. A bunch of fools. Amos swore quietly. Then he said, "Don't listen to them, Meng Lei. Even if you hand over the golden leaf, the Tree of Life won't let you off. You must understand that the leaf is a divine weapon. Once it gets its hands on it, the Tree of Life will definitely silence everyone and kill all of you. Why would that evil deity care about your lives when it doesn't even care about the deaths of its countless magical beast worshippers? Begging for mercy? That's just that bunch of fools' wishful thinking. Tree of Life." A hint of insanity flashed past the depths of Meng Lei's eyes as he shouted hysterically, "Stop goddamn daydreaming. Even if we must fight it out, you can forget about taking even a strand of hair from me." Meng Lei had only just spoken when all the power in him erupted. Then he smashed the hammer of destruction in his hand madly toward the Tree of Life. "You foolish and ignorant human." The Tree of Life was enraged. "Now that you've rejected the final bit of a deity's goodwill, be prepared to suffer a deity's fury. God's domain." A terrifying energy wave instantly came crushing down on Meng Lei. As if his acupoints had been sealed, he instantly froze on the spot, unable to move even a fingertip. "It's over. All over." Amos heaved a sigh. "It isn't. It's not over yet." Meng Lei, whose eyes were bloodshot and looked as if a crazed man, ordered. System, raise the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate. Don't stop. Raise it as much as possible. Until all my wealth has been redeemed for credit. Ding. Dear host, your wealth amounts to a total of 73.2 laws of nature origin crystals. It is possible to raise the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate by 7%. May I know whether you'd like to raise it? Yes. Whoosh. His wealth instantly shrank by 70 laws of nature origin crystals. Boom. Boom. It's all his fault. If it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have landed ourselves in such a predicament. That fool screwed us over so bad. It's over. All over. What a pitiful and foolish idiot. Is he actually having delusions of resistance? What a joke. How laughable. Tragic. Boom. However, it was at this moment that innumerable greenish-black air currents suddenly burst forth from Meng Lei, who had been imprisoned on the spot by the Tree of Life's god's domain and unable to move even a finger. As though blazing cyan flames, yet also like thick, roiling smoke signals of war rising high into the sky, they wrapped all around Meng Lei in an instant. Boom! As if skyrocketing, Meng Lei's aura spiked and expanded insanely. 10, 50, 98, 99, boom! It instantly went off the charts. In the time for one to take just a few short breaths, Meng Lei's aura had been boosted by not just 100 or 1,000 times. A terrifying pressure spread and swept outward in every direction, crashing down on everyone's spirits. Boom! Hardly able to breathe, everyone felt as though a great mountain that weighed 1 billion tons was weighing down on them. Shock and horror filled their eyes. What's going on? What has happened to that idiot? Meng Lei has broken through again? Abe's beautiful eyes twinkled with extraordinary splendor. Eh? The Tree of Life let out a soft sound of surprise and commented, "That cunning human has actually broken through in the face of danger? Interesting." Screech. A sharp, ear-piercing howl that almost pierced right through everyone's souls suddenly rang out. As everyone's ears rang, to their horror, they saw the hologram of a furry creature manifest above Meng Lei. Sleek, shiny fur, greenish-black, ink-like skin, sharp, savage-looking fangs, and icy-cold eyes. The Tree of Life exclaimed softly, "What's that?" For some reason, the hologram was actually causing a sense of fear that reached right into one's bones and a sense of dread that could intimidate one's soul in it. Felt just like when it had faced a powerful Saint Domain magical beast when it was still small and weak. Vulnerable, helpless, and pitiful. No, I'm a great half-deity. There's nothing I fear. That's right. There isn't a single life form that I fear. Murderous intent overflowed from the Tree of Life's speech as it dispelled its feelings of fear and dread. No matter who you are and no matter what kind of bloodline you carry, go to hell. Overwhelming divine power came fully crashing down on Meng Lei. Then a golden branch shot toward him. Whoosh! In most people's memories, tree branches were typically very light, nimble, and tender objects. But this particular golden branch from the Tree of Life was instead incredibly heavy and unbelievably quick. A fearsome build coupled with a fearsome speed. One can easily imagine just how great the driving force contained in the branch must be. Should one be struck by it, those weaker than half-deities would surely die on impact. As for how a half-deity would fare, no one knew. The golden branch ripped through the air and reached Meng Lei in an instant. Just as it was about to lash against him. Whoosh! At the very last moment, Meng Lei, who had been trapped, vanished, leaving behind not even a trace of himself. What? The Tree of Life couldn't help but exclaim. He's actually vanished while he's still inside my god's domain. This is impossible. Nothing is impossible, you old tree demon. A cold, imposing voice rang out as Meng Lei abruptly showed up in front of the Tree of Life. He raised the hammer of destruction high up into the air. A storm raged and howled furiously around the hammer. Then it went smashing down. Boom! The hammer of destruction, which had been imbued with incredible destructiveness, smashed heavily against the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life shook violently with a deafening explosion as the hammer smashed a huge pit into its trunk. Of course, relative to the Tree of Life's immeasurably tall and thick trunk, the so-called huge pit was actually no different from a tiny pore on a human skin, indiscernible. No, impossible. Nevertheless, the Tree of Life was terribly aghast. One must know that it was a half-deity. On top of that, it was even a botanical half-deity life form. Its trunk was solid and indestructible. Not even a fellow half-deity could wound it, let alone a mere Saint Domain. And yet, Meng Lei had managed to. A Saint Domain had actually wounded it. The Tree of Life couldn't help being alarmed, enraged, and horrified. Damned human, you've thoroughly enraged me. The Tree of Life flew into a terrible fit of anger. An infinite number of golden vines lashed about in the sky and turned into innumerable golden whips that blotted out the sun as they lashed toward Meng Lei in a swarm, as though intending to shatter him into bits and pieces. Kill! Meng Lei moved at lightning-fast speed, weaving to and fro and crisscrossing left and right at will amid the all-encompassing net of whips. No matter how the golden vines slapped and lashed at him, they simply didn't manage to hit even the corners of his clothes. He literally passed through a thicket of 10,000 whips and emerged without a single one touching him. Die, old tree demon! After weaving through the overlapping layers of whips, Meng Lei charged right up to the Tree of Life again and gave it another furious, earth-shattering hammer blast. Howl! Gales howled furiously as tornadoes went through the clouds. Boom! Another huge pit appeared in the trunk. You bastard! Damn it! I'm so mad! I'm so mad! Rage drove the Tree of Life to the brink of insanity. It was a great half-deity that stood at the apex of the pyramid of life forms on Heaven's vault continent. Yet it was actually powerless against a Saint Domain? How was it supposed to uphold its half-deity reputation like that? God's domain! The Tree of Life let out a furious roar and tried madly to suppress Meng Lei. Buzz! A momentary pause came over Meng Lei's form, and he froze. D. Thousands upon thousands of golden whips took the opportunity to lash toward him. Whoosh! Meng Lei regained his mobility and vanished from the spot again. And then, boom! A third pit was formed. Oh! That brat is actually… Oh my dragon god! Am I dreaming? A hallucination! This must be a hallucination! It's fake! It must be fake! How can Meng Lei possibly be a match for a half-deity? He's just a Saint Domain. Well, Amos, Abbe, the other contestants, the thousands of holy knights. Everyone was astounded. Who would have ever imagined the scene currently playing out in front of them? Who would have ever imagined that the Tree of Life, a great half-deity, would actually be unable to do anything about Meng Lei, a mere Saint Domain? On top of that, Meng Lei, the Saint Domain in question, was even just 16 years old. Why exactly has it turned out like that? No one could understand why, save for Ol Amos, whose lip corners were spasming as waves churned fiercely in his heart. That little bastard has inexplicably gotten stronger again. It's just that, isn't the scale kinda too exaggerated this time? You goddamn little thief. I want you dead. The Tree of Life was so infuriated that it was close to bursting from rage. God's domain. Meng Lei's form froze slightly, imprisoned once more. Divine technique, deprivation of life. With a deep roar, thousands upon thousands of golden light rays burst forth from the Tree of Life. They morphed into a thick, sturdy golden light beam that instantly shrouded Meng Lei within. Right on the heels of it, a mysterious wave of energy invaded Meng Lei's body, taking instant effect and fervently stripping him of his life force. A divine technique. This is a divine technique. Ol Amos shouted in warning. Kid. A divine technique uses one's power of divinity as a driving force. It holds absolute effect over life forms without any power of divinity. Quickly, think of something. No matter what, you must break free of God's domain's shackles. Otherwise, when the divine technique's might unfolds, you'll be doomed. Move. Come on, move. Meng Lei bellowed deeply, furiously trying to move his body, only to tragically find out that the god's domain was exceptionally powerful this time. His body didn't listen to his command at all. Since that's the case, then this is my only option now. Veins bulged on Meng Lei's forehead as he let out a low roar. God-slaying rat. Transformation. Poof. Right after he spoke, Meng Lei's body began to furiously shrink and shrivel like a deflating inflatable doll. In the span of a few short breaths, he had become only 0.5 meters tall. At the same time, innumerable strands of greenish-black fur emerged on the surface of his body. 3 black whiskers extended from each side of his cheeks while a long, slender, and exquisite tail grew from his bottom. Boom! Several greenish-black air currents circled around him as a surging, torrential blast of vast, majestic savage aura erupted from him. All 10 fingers of his turned into razor-sharp claws. His eyes were a shiny jet black while his 2 front teeth turned long, slender, and sharp. He had actually transformed into a god-slaying rat person. Screech. Meng Lei broke free of God's domain's shackles with a light shake and immediately vanished within the golden light beam. What nimble agility! What terrifying defenses! His body had become immeasurably lighter and more nimble, while his defenses had also been enhanced by several times. Meng Lei took in the new sensations, overwhelmed by his emotions. His self-confidence rose like never before. In that instant, he actually feared the Tree of Life no more. All there was left in him was just surging fighting spirit and overflowing murderous intent. Disappear. Upon command, the hammer of destruction vanished. Meng Lei swayed slightly, and then, as if he had teleported, he appeared bizarrely on the Tree of Life's trunk. With a light swipe of his sharp claws, a crisp scratching sound rang out, and he clawed out a deep fissure on the Tree of Life. What sharp claws! Even Meng Lei himself was astounded. His eyes shone brightly, and he began to brandish his claws again and again. Then, amidst crisp scratching sounds, a deep hole was created. Drip, drip, droplets of golden sap seeped out of the deep hole. They emanated a light and refreshing fragrance that invigorated and revitalized all that caught a whiff of it. Ah! On the other hand, the Tree of Life cried out in pain instead, as thousands upon thousands of golden vines whipped toward Meng Lei in a frenzy. As Meng Lei eyed the innumerable vines lashing through the air toward him, his eyes swiveled sneakily, and he thought to himself, since my claws are so sharp, why don't I? Meng Lei promptly dived into the deep hole that he had just dug with that thought in mind. Slash, slash. As his claws repeatedly dug into the Tree of Life, the hole also became deeper and deeper. Then he dived right into it. You bastard! What are you doing? Ah! The Tree of Life was terribly aghast. Then, it let out a shrill scream, and its enormous body began to shake violently. As if it had taken ecstasy pills, its trunk swayed while its leaves trembled. I dig! I dig! Da, da, da. Compared to its astonishingly sturdy bark, its insides are surprisingly and relatively much softer. What fragrant sap! I wonder if it's potable. You little bastard! I've got to hand it to you. Old Amos' voice, which contained boundless excitement, rang out at this point. Hurry! Find its vitality core. The Tree of Life is also a botanical life form, so as long as you can find its vitality core, you'll be able to kill it. Although there's only a sliver of a chance, now that things have reached this point, it's completely worth risking it and giving it a try. If you can kill it, you'll strike gold.